So welcome everybody to another dev chat where we talk about sort of techie stuff and blockchain stuff and obviously stuff that's related to Minima. And as always, I'm never quite sure what I'm going to talk about. And then this morning, there's so many different topics have turned up. So what shall we talk about first? I don't want to be boring, but I'm going to have a little rant about core versus not again, because this is like what's happening. And it's, it's starting to get it's a bit heavy. It's a bit depressing. And the reason is that it's like, it takes up all the energy and all the communication and all the conversations. And instead of discussing like clever ways of using bit fields and Merkle branches to prove interesting smart contracts, or, discussing how we might possibly add quantum security to the Bitcoin network, all we're doing now is going, I hate you. No, I hate you. No, you're wrong. No, you're stupid and ugly. Yeah. It's completely degenerated into all out war. We've seen it before, but it's like, oh, it's been a while now. And I'm just like, really? Is this where we're at? Is this what we're having to do? And it really, really makes me understand that a truly decentralized, and Bitcoin is decentralized in its development. Yeah. That Minima, the protocol, decentralized. I love it. You all run it in so many ways. Minima just hits the nail on the head when it comes to decentralization. But as far as development goes, we have failed so far. Yeah. As in, I do the development really of the Minima client and all of that stuff. Bitcoin's not really, it kind of is with core, but what I'm saying is there's so many different parties now doing so many different things that I think it has reached a level of decentralization on that front. And they're trying to change one variable in the default settings for the relay policy. Yeah, it's not even a consensus change. It's not a fork. It's not any of that. Both the systems can talk to each other, but they're trying to change a default setting, and all-out war has broken out. All-out war has broken out. And it really makes me think it's impossible. It's impossible for a decentralized system to fork, because it's now beyond the scope of anyone to actually control. And that is that should be praised. It's like, wow, they've reached that point now where they can't fork. But it's also like, but it's not finished yet. They don't have the quantum security, and they do have this. The time there's one issue in Bitcoin. There's really only one broken thing in Bitcoin, and that's the clock, the time unit, which tells you the time milli of a block, is an int, and it's not a long. It's only 4 bytes and not 8, which means that int runs out in about 20 years, let's say. So in 20 years' time, unless they can fix that, Bitcoin breaks, because you can't add the time correctly, because it goes back to 0, and so everything's going to break unless you do some sort of fork that sort of fixes it. I'm sure that sort of thing will, hone and clarify, and everyone will get together. But that's the only real thing that's standing out. But they're gonna have to fork at some point to fix that. And that's aside from the fact that, look, are you going to implement some sort of quantum signature scheme? We've talked about this before. And it's like, if you can't even agree, if you can't even not go to war over this one setting for this one relay policy as to the amount of data I can put after an OP return, how are you possibly going to agree on a quantum secure signature scheme? How to implement, like maybe they go, we're going to use Lamport. There's 50 ways you could do that. Which way are you going to use? Like, I would, I'm sort of for just give me the minimum amount that I need. Give me the, if I could just give me Merkle branch proofs, I could probably write the Winternits in script. Or are some people saying, no, we'll just do one opcode that does Winternits, Lamport signatures, or, am I going to use ntrue? Am I going to use Sphinx? Which scheme are they going to do? And that is a big change. That's like a lot of technical code. That's going to require consensus across the board for them to do this. And I don't know, man. Even I'm a fanboy. I want Bitcoin to work. Like the rest of us. I want minimum work. I want Bitcoin to work. Those are the only two. But even I don't know if we're going to be able to get over this. I don't even. There needs to be we have lost the ability to discuss this stuff in a rational. We are now so polarized, and this is a general thing about the times we live in or something. We just don't seem to be able to have a discussion where we can have a disagreement and it not break down into acrimony and name calling and hatred and all of these things. And it's like, that is what we're witnessing now. Yeah, that there's just no middle ground. It's like, yeah. And what's weird as well is that, I've done a couple of tweets about this, and to me, it's pretty obvious that knots is not the way to go. Yeah, to me, it's pretty obvious that nothing you've done so far has stopped it. None of the filters have worked. People have been able to get this stuff in the chain anyway. And so all Core are saying is, if you're going to do it, let's do it in the least harmful, offensive way. That's literally what they're saying. They've said it 1,000 times. It's like, if you're going to do it, let's try doing it in a way that we can prune and that is expensive and that doesn't make it, doesn't make you do it in the really annoying way, which is where you put it into the, the Taproot envelopes, where you pretend it's a signature, but it's actually a JPEG. That's what's happening. And there's just no, you'd think that's a pretty reasonable thing to say. You'd think, all right, I understand where you're coming from, but and they're saying, well, I don't think you should do anything to help people. I think you should make it as difficult as possible, even if it's annoying. And even if they can do it, by making it simpler, you're somehow accepting it, and you shouldn't accept it, and you should always try to fight it. And I kind of agree with that. But as I've said, that you don't get to decide how people use your tech. You don't get to tell these people not to use a cardboard box as a spaceship. It's like, this is what they're going to use it for. This is a decentralized system. And so just shut up. They're using it for this. Let's give them a way of doing it that is as unoffensive and difficult to get rid of as possible, which I think sounds like a reasonable thing to say, but there is no reason. There's no reasonableness going on in that argument. Yeah, it's just all out war. So Maybe this is the core truth. A truly decentralized system cannot be forked, cannot be touched. You can't play with any of the settings because there are those who want it and those who don't. And we, and this is more of a sort of sociological thing. We have lost the ability to discuss these things with calm and decorum and niceness and all of this. And it's now like you're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill me. It's like it's absolute total vehemence and nastiness. So that's. We could be discussing interesting things. We could be discussing lots of other stuff, and it's not. This has taken up all of the Bitcoin Twitter space and the forum space, and it's like let's talk about something cool. Yeah, let's not worry about this. Let's talk. There's other things that we can discuss, but no. So let's see how long this goes. Some part of me thinks that we're sort of running out of steam, but part of me doesn't, and it's like this is going to go on for a while. So I don't know. Core versus knots. Come on, guys. This will go in the book. All right, this has earned its place in the book that they write 20 years from now. There was the block size wars, the SegWit, the Taproot, blah, blah, blah. And on we go. And on that point, actually, since I did a tweet today, I don't know if anybody has seen it. And the truth is that you should never fork your chain because it's always bad. It's always done wrong. It's always, when you think about it, so you've got Ethereum is the king of forking. And basically, they had the difficulty bomb, which meant that you had to do a fork every 6 months or the chain stopped. I mean, he put that in. It's like, And so they sort of got into this mindset where it's okay to fork, it's okay to do it. But now they've got this system where no one could rewrite Ethereum from scratch. Yeah, it's like the technical debt is far too great. And the things they've done, I don't like the things they've done. I didn't want them to remove proof of work for proof of stake. Yeah, I wanted the commodity. I wanted the simplicity and elegance and security that proof of work gives you, but you just don't get with proof of stake. Proof of stake centralizes far, far greater. Money centralizes. And now the more money you have, the more power you have. And it's like, but everyone always tries to get money. It's like you've sort of exponentially ramped up the ability for this system to centralize by making it a proof of stake system. So that was when my affair with Ethereum was over. When they did that, I was like, you've totally broken it. That's not what I wanted. I don't want that. And then they've just added and added and added, and they keep adding. And it's like, what are you adding? What are you doing? No one can keep up with this now. It's like you just get to decide. It's not a decentralized protocol. It's a centralized company. Yeah, there's 15 people who actually get to write this protocol, and you get to use it, and that's fine. But if I wanted to, muck about with it. I could. If I was the Chinese government, you're nothing to me, Ethereum. Yeah, I'd destroy you overnight. That's literally how long it would take me to take down I'd just shut off Infura, and 99% of people are already totally screwed. Yeah, one company, just shut them down. If it became an issue, yeah. If the fact that the US government suddenly thinks, wow, this is actually going to threaten us, yeah, you think they're just going to sit there and let this happen? You think they're happy with, all of this stuff happening on chain? Of course they're not. Yeah, they spend less money on their defense. They spend trillions and trillions of dollars on their defense. This is a defense issue. This is like an attack. And then you look at Bitcoin, and it's like they did SegWit. Yeah, we're not going to talk about Gavin's failed hard fork, which chain split, doesn't matter. But then they did SegWit, which is like segregated witness. Yeah, what they did is they made a system where in the old days on Bitcoin, when you signed something, when you did the witness, you could change the witness a little bit, which didn't make it invalid, which meant that the transaction ID was invalid, which would change the transaction ID. It was known as transaction malleability. You could somehow change the transaction because of the way that Satoshi did it, where the signature doesn't sign the transaction. It's actually something you add to the script and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get technical. And so they wanted to fix that. And so they came up with this system called segregated witness. And when he did the fork, startlingly brilliant, amazing bit of code. That's not, that goes without saying, just total brilliance in terms of that. But the way they did it was they did a soft fork, which meant that only the miners actually had to do it, and you didn't have to upgrade just because they didn't want to annoy people. And it meant that they had to have the original Bitcoin 1 megabyte block, and now they have a separate 3 megabyte block, so 4 megabytes in all. And all your SegWit stuff goes in the 3 megabyte block. Yeah, all your BC1 addresses, all your Taproot stuff, that all goes in that block. And then other transaction stuff goes in this block. And it's just messy. It's just like you've made it messy. And there's a different fee rate. There's different fees if you're using this one and this one, which is why they stuff their images into the segregated witness block, because it's 4 times cheaper, I think. Yeah, and it's like, what? And they're saying, because we can prune that, so we had to make this. They made a choice. They came up with a magic number. It's like it's 4 times cheaper to put it into this. And it's like, well, they could have hard forked and they could have fixed it, and they could have given us a 4 megabyte block, and they could have said, look, just upgrade to this new version of Bitcoin. We fix transaction malleability, and then we can move on from there. But they didn't, and they it's like messy, just like, that if we had to do it again, would we do it that way? I hope that they would. That is not to say anything about how brilliant the code was that Peter Wheel wrote, who's the guy who wrote it, but the way that it was done is not cool. And then you've got Taproot, the Taproot assets and all that stuff, and it's like, really? That was what you forked in? And like, who uses that? Like who even understands how that works? The fact that you can have these masked branches in a signature so that I can actually show. Interestingly, Minima does actually have that in a masked system, but it's just like, what has come out of it? What have you managed to do? Has it meant that you can do dexes, and has it meant that you can do liquidity pools? Has it meant that you can do perp swaps? Has it meant that you can do, what has been done with this tech that any of us use? Nothing. There's no bit of that you use. I see lots of interesting technical documents about some of the stuff that you could do if you did this. It's so complicated. But it's like, what do we actually use? What have they actually made that is now impacting our lives, that you can log into your, they say, we've got the better addresses and you put your stuff in there. But it's like, you could have done that, in an easier, better way. We didn't need that for that. Yeah. So there's nothing that we actually use out of that system either. That's another fork. Yeah. They did that, fought for it, did it. Nobody uses it. And it's just like, it's really hard to fork your chain in a useful way. There's just too many different opinions about what you should put in and what you shouldn't put in. You just shouldn't fork your chain. And thank God Minima is done. Thank God we never have to worry about that I never have to worry about that. Warts and all. Are there little bits of Minima that could be, but and it's like, but are we going to change them? No. All I can tell you is that as soon as you fork, half of them don't like it and half of them do. And half that don't like it piss off, and they leave and they don't stay. And it's like, and if you take that every time, there's just less. And I'm sure this is what's happening with Ethereum. Every time they fork, 10% of them go. So there's only 90% left. And then they fork again, and then 10% of them go. And they fork again, and it's just like, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the subset. Yeah, when you lose people. And all you knew is that before you forked, everybody was on it. Everybody liked it. It's like, we're all using this now. This is the system. Oh, we're changing it. Well, some people are like, yeah, we really need that feature. And other people are like, no, we don't. I don't want that feature. Change, blobs. I understand why you need blobs on Ethereum, yeah, to sort of check the validity of the proofs. And they were like, instead of betting it on it's a good idea. Yeah, there's lots of smart guys thinking this stuff. Smart people come up with stupid shit all the time. And it's smart. It's like smart people came up with this stuff. And it's like, actually, when you implement it and nobody uses it, you can't fake use. You can't fake, it was a good idea and they're definitely going to use it. And it's like, well, it was, whatever idea it was, no one's using it. Yeah, you made us do all of that. You made us jump through all that. I'm not saying people aren't using blobs. Blobs is a problem because it means that it's even harder to run an Ethereum node. Every decision they make is always, we're going to have less people who are able to run Ethereum now. We're making Ethereum even bigger and even more complicated and even harder to debug. Or, it's like every decision is counteracting any hopes of decentralization. And as far as Bitcoin goes, I don't know if I like any of the forks. Yeah. And now, how are they going to implement quantum secure signatures? How are they going to fix the timestamp thing? How are we going to get OP-CAT? We're just trying to get OP-CAT 11 lines of code, which might actually give us some cool stuff. There's no way that the core and the NOTs people are going to agree about this. I want OPC-TV, I want OPC-SV, I want... they're not going to give us now because it's impossible. They're not going to be able to agree on this functionality because every other time has been a total disaster. And now they're like, look, just forget it. You've ruined it. You burned your bridges. I'm not interested. I don't want it. So you got to be careful with this stuff. Yeah. Forking, bad. It's just bad. And it's a different chain. It's not the old chain. And it's, this is the nature of the beast with blockchains where you only have one. There can be only one, and there's one winner. And even when you get a splinter group, BCH, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, look what happened to them. That's what happens to the splinter groups. Ethereum Classic. Yeah, it's just like only one of you survives the battle, and you're like, well, that's how it should be. Yeah, there's only someone, and it's like, yeah, but you lost half your users. Which you didn't have to do. You didn't have to lose them. You could have a bigger base of people, and they would have. And this is the thing: they probably would have worked out a way of doing whatever you say you're giving them. Yeah, OP-CAT tells us this. With OP-CAT, which is like 11 lines of code, the concatenation of two hashes. That's all it does. It just concatenates bits of data. We've come up with, I can do stock layer 2 stock web. Yeah, I can do zero knowledge proofs. I can do all of this just if you give me this one function. And it's like, what? Really? You never would have thought this 10 years ago, but because you didn't have it, because you had to sit there thinking about it, it's suddenly like, oh, actually, we can do this. And I thought, let's think about this. Yeah, all I need is this. Anyway, so we're not going to get it now, are we? We're not going to get any of those cool things. This is why we can't have nice things. Because we're not nice to each other. And that's a plus and a minus, a pro and a con. It's decentralized enough that it cannot be forked. And frankly, the only chains that can be forked are the ones that are centralized. And that's the only reason Ethereum can fork, because it's totally centralized. So be careful of chains that fork. Right. I know people are meant to come up. Please, does anybody want to have a little rant about what I've just talked about with core versus NOTs? Do come up. I'm not seeing any of anyone. I am looking for hands up, but no one's put a hand up. I'm just going to talk about the next thing that I want to talk about then. But if anybody wants to come up, remember, you're more than welcome. I'd love you to come up and have a go at me, whatever. Meta Ray Bans. So when you're a coder, there's a very nice, simple way of looking at what you're coding. Must-haves, nice-to-haves. It must do this, must have these features, and it'd be nice if it had these features. Right? I use that all the time. That's my base. When I'm writing code, I'm like, it must have this, and it will be nice if it has this. And you think that was, and this is again to do with consent. This is why blockchains are so amazing. They allow us to come to consensus. And you'd think that it'd be easy to come up with the must-haves and the nice-to-haves, but it's not. It's not easy to come up with the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. And how do we know this? Because Meta had totally screwed that. So I have the original Meta Ray-Bans. They're awesome. They're totally cool. I love them. Yeah. And the reason they're totally cool and I love them is because they look like Ray-Bans. That's the must-have. That's what changed. That's what made them function. That's what made them work. It's like, oh, they look like a pair of normal Ray-Bans. I don't look like a dork. I mean, I do, but I'm just saying, with the glasses, they don't make you look like a dork. They look like normal glasses. Cool. Oh, and what they do stuff as well. What do they do? Oh, they got little speakers. Oh, and they got Bluetooth, so I can make a phone call and I can talk to the person. That's totally cool. What's this? I can make a little picture and a video. Ooh, nice. But they look like normal Ray-Bans, yeah? Yeah, they look like normal Ray-Bans, and they do these other little things. Must look like normal glasses, nice to have. Ooh, and they do all this other stuff. The new Meta Ray-Ban display, which has got a little display tag. I mean, who comes up with this stuff? It's like, do they look like glasses? And it's like, no. It's like, what? What do you mean? I mean, the must-haves is they must look like normal Ray-Bans. It's like, they don't look like Ray-Bans. But they do this other thing where you get the digital display and all of this. It's like, no, whoa. The must-haves was they must look like normal glasses. They can't look like dorky smart glasses that make me look like, it's like, that's not going to work. No one's going to put those on their face. How much did you spend on this, Meta? Billions. How many work groups did you work with? How many, quorums and discussions and everything? And those idiots didn't tell you that the only thing that mattered was that they must look like Ray-Bans. And then you can give me all this other stuff. Oh, and they do, and now they do a little thing and they do some, okay, that's cool, but they look like Ray-Bans, yeah? No, they've ruined that. They don't look like Ray-Bans. They look like anybody who's seen that. They look like, dork glasses. And so no one's going to buy them. No one's going to want them. It's like, I can't want them. I'm the sort of person that would buy them. I bought the first set. I love the first set. I'm up for the second set. I can't buy them. You've ruined it. And it's like, don't we understand? This is to do with what we were talking about with core. Don't we understand what the must-haves and the nice-to-haves are? Or everybody has different must-haves and nice-to-haves. Everybody. And even massive corporations like Meta, who spend billions on this and must have asked user groups and this and all of that, and they got it totally wrong. It's like, how can that be? How can you have chosen that path? So must-haves, nice-to-haves. You think it's an easy one? It's not. Yeah. Forget forking. When we fork, it must do this, and it'd be nice to do that. Forget it. If Meta can't get their glasses right after the success of their first glasses, so they had absolute objective proof that the only thing that mattered was that they looked like Ray-Bans. Yeah? No, they got it wrong. Okay. Again, humanity. This is what we do. I do have this thing that I want to talk about. It's about incentives. It's slightly political. The last time I did this, they cut me out. So this is for you. All right. So Luke, I'm sorry. I'm just going to talk about it very, very quickly. And then you can cut me out if you don't like it. And so what I was going to say is incentives. Incentives, blockchains run on incentives. Yeah, the whole point is that the system needs to be incentive compatible. That's what makes these decentralized systems work. We're incentivized in the correct way. Show me the incentives, I will show you the result. And again, you'd think, okay, it's pretty obvious if you tell me what the incentives are, or if you tell me what you're doing, what the incentives will be, and so I can tell you what will happen. Wrong. Here in the UK, our government has just recognized a state somewhere. Yeah, they've recognized the Palestine state. I don't want to get involved in any of that. That's a very complicated issue, and I don't want to say anything about it. But he said, if Israel don't leave, I will recognize a Palestinian state. What's the incentives for that then? So what you're saying is, if they leave, so if you stop doing whatever you're doing, if you're nice to them, and then they leave, then you won't get your state. Whereas if they stay there because you're incentivized to make them stay, then I'll recognize your state. And it's like, what? I mean, you show me the incentives and I'll show you the end result. And it's like, you incentivize them to not peace, to not release hostages, to not do any of that, because the only thing they were interested in is Israel needs to stay here. Because if they do, then they'll recognize us as a state, and then we can do loads of other things. And it's like, that was the incentive that you gave them by doing that. And didn't somebody mention that? Didn't somebody say, look, those are the wrong incentives? Yeah. Is it haven't you seen A Beautiful Mind? Yeah. It's like, you'd think that people could come up with solutions, answers that incentivize you correctly, but they can't. Yeah. They don't see that this is how it plays out. I think a lot of people don't actually understand how incentives work or what they are, or, they never think of the word incentives. What are your incentives? There's a sort of moral or ethical, reason to this, and it's not hard maths. Yeah. Which is really what incentives are. It's like a mathematical, boom. And so again, it's just like weird. I mean, all these things, it's just like humanity, humans, is this how we roll? Is this what we're going to have to deal with? Just this disparity of, understandings, the way that we see situations so totally differently, and so one thing that is so utterly obvious to some of us and so not obvious to others, and maybe I'm missing something, maybe there's something that I'm totally not saying. I totally agree, there probably is, but this is this is all wrapped up in what I'm saying, the core versus nots, the trying to fork, the incentives. Show me the incentives, come up with the right incentives with the meta. It's like, look, what are you doing here? So not having to fork, having a completed system. Whew, we dodged a bullet there, team. We did well to do that. Yeah, that was a good choice. God, right. I was going to show you a demo of Omnia. I will say one other thing, which is just that I don't know if anybody's seen Vitalik's L2 post today, where he was going on about how Base can't run off with your money, which was just a blatant lie. And I was just like, what? Is this what we've come to now? Like, it's a multi-sig that accesses it. And I understand that he's saying that they don't have the only access. Yeah, they don't unilaterally have the ability to take their money, but a 75% vote on the smart contract allows them to change the smart contract. They can do whatever they want. And this idea that any L2 just inherits the qualities of the L1 is nonsense. It's just not true. I don't understand if it's a desperate cry for help or what it is, but I did find that a bit weird. I don't know whether he's cracking or what, but it's like, if 75% of the people who run the Base chain want to pinch all your money, they can pinch your money. And there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, you do not just get to run as if you were running on Ethereum on your L2. That's not how it works. There's always a quorum. There's always a group of people who, maybe not one person, maybe not one organization, but, a conglomerate of people who can pinch your money. That's true on Liquid as well, on Liquid. On Bitcoin, Liquid's Bitcoin network. Yeah, there's 17 of them and you need 11 votes to do something, blah, blah, blah. I always wonder what would happen if you destroyed like 12 of them. So there weren't 11 left. But when you're on L2, you are beholden to someone, and there is no L2 and no L2 tech that allows you to jump on and off trustlessly, permissionlessly, without having any issues, except Omnia, except Lightning, where you can unilaterally close and leave with the money. That's the only one that doesn't require anybody else, and nobody can stop you from posting your transaction on chain. Nothing else has that ability. Only L2, only Lightning. So that's something. I don't know why he's done that. Okay, so no, nobody wants to answer questions. Okay, fine. Let's talk Omnia. Let's talk about how share screen, share entire screen, make selection, that one, RTK, share, boom. Big, okay, wait a second. Ding. Can you see, Neo? Can you? I need some feedback. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, I'm assuming you can. Okay, so here we go. Just some feedback from somebody that you can see this. Neo, can you see this? I'm assuming you can. All right, let's hope this works. There's a screen being shared. Okay, so what do we got here? ThunderPay. Oh, look, I called it Thundercats. I didn't even realize that. Okay, ThunderPay. Okay, so what is this? This is a little MiniDapp that I wrote that uses L2 Omnia. And what this lets you do is it lets you start channels between users. It uses Maxima for its communication between the users. And as I've said a few times, Maxima was not designed for speed. It was designed for security and convenience. It's secure because all the messages are completely encrypted and I jump around the network and nobody can DOS me and you don't actually know who I am anyway on the network. So it's very cool in that regard. And it's convenient because it just works. And somehow I'm able to send messages to people that I have started a Maxima channel with. It's not perfect. I agree. There are issues with it. Fine. Sometimes my connection goes if we both go offline and then I have to restart my connection. Okay, I understand. But in many ways, it works rather well. And I'm quite chuffed with Maxima, actually. I'll take that. So what have I got here? There's Paddy on this side and Popo on this side. And I'm going to start a new Omnia channel with Popo. And so when you want to start a channel, I basically lock up funds. So I'm going to say, look, I'm going to put 20 in and I want you to add 30. So I'm going to say, request a new channel. You're about to open a channel. Just to say that this MiniDapp is available. You do need the latest version of Minima because I had to add a couple of functions that let me do a few cool things. Right, return to homepage. So here it is. This is the one that I just tried to start. It says here, I've got 20 and 50. I'm requesting a channel. Nothing has happened yet except me sending him a message saying, hey, man, do you want to start a Lightning channel with me? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll have to put in 30 out of 50. I'm going to accept that. Okay, boom. Okay. So now what's happening is that messages are being sent backwards and forwards. Quite a few messages, if I'm completely honest. I need to have the funding transaction where we both send the money. I need to have the trigger transaction where we spend the funding. I need to have the latest update, and I need to have a settlement transaction. And I need all of them to be signed in reverse order so that he can't post anything until I've definitely got everything I need to make sure that I can close the channel and take my money. Right, anyway, that worked. I've got 20 and 50. Yeah, he's got 30, and we've now got a channel between us. So if we look at logs, I requested a channel. If we look at his logs, they're actually asymmetric. I requested a channel, he accepted. We posted the funding transaction, and now we've got a new funding coin, which shows me my current payout of 20. All right. So let's send some money. All right, send. I'm going to send 1.23456. Okay. So what's it doing now? I'm creating a new transaction. I'm sending it. I'm signing this new latest update and settlement. I'm sending it to Paddy I'm sending it to Popo. Sorry, Paddy's on the left, Popo's on the right. And he's looking at it, and it's like, because I'm always sending you money. I'm not requesting. You always accept, because it's like, okay, so you're giving me money. I check that you're sending me money, that the account goes up, and here I am. I've now got 31.24567. Yeah. And you've got this. I'm going to send you some money back. So I'm going to go 0.234. I'm going to send that back. And just to say, I think this is the first ever live L2 Lightning channel application. I know there is an application called Mercury on Bitcoin, but that doesn't use L2. That uses a sort of cascading time locks, which I don't like, with the old Lightning system. So it's not L2. Yeah, this is the first pure L2 system, which is so elegant and simple because it means that I only need to store the latest transaction. Yeah, I need to store the trigger and the update and the SIP, but I only need to store the latest. I don't need to store any of the detritus. I don't need to have any of the old transactions. As long as I have the oldest version, I can get out. And so now me and Popo are just sending money backwards and forwards to each other. And just to say, I can send any amount. Yeah, this is what's beautiful. And this is not some sort of fake thing. Yeah, these are real transactions. And when it appears, so because of Maxima and because I have to mine the transaction, it takes about 5 to 10 seconds to send a message. That is not inherent in the protocol. That is because I'm having to send backwards and forwards 4 to 5 messages that are over Maxima, and Maxima requires me to do work and blah, blah, blah. If you were sending it via a different route, if you weren't using Maxima, if you were using Keat, for instance, if you were using UDP, if I was just using normal messaging network system, I mean, I could do it over WhatsApp, be even slower. Yeah, I could copy the message and post it in WhatsApp, and then you could paste it into here. I did think about doing that, but I thought, and then you'd post me the response, so we've just got to send these bits of data back and forward to each other. But those are real transactions. Those are not fake transactions. That's like a real minima, yeah, that I now have. Ooh, fun sent, there we go, da-da-da. And so we can keep doing this forever, just backwards and forwards, any amount, machine to machine. I'm going to pay you 1,000th of a penny per byte. I'm the fire sensor. I'm going to talk to the Wi-Fi router, and I'm going to pay you per byte. Yeah, so I don't need to have that tech in me. I don't need to have Wi-Fi access. I can say, if I'm in a factory and there's all these different sensors and they want to warn something, or they want to, notify some website about what the current temperature is, only have one router and charge all the different machines 1,000th of a penny per byte, 1,000,000th of a penny, doesn't matter. They can do it all the time, and they can do it as many times as they want. Yeah, this is what this stuff is good for. I mean, obviously it's good for human to human, but for machine to machine, it's really good. And just to say again, here, imagine 10,000 of us have got these channels. Imagine every single, all of us have got this running, and we've all got channels over Maxima, and we're going to try and do this, yeah. And it's like, right, we're gonna set it up so that at 12 o'clock we're all going to send one Minima to the other person at 12 o'clock GMT on the 25th of whatever. Go. That's 10,000 transactions per second. Those are real transactions. That's 10,000 transactions per second that are occurring, as real as any normal transactions. Now imagine you've got 1 million people doing it. 1 million people, right? Okay, so we've sent backwards and forwards, logs. Yeah, I've sent, he's received. I've sent, he's received. Let's close it. and this is the important bit, close unilateral. You can close the channel cooperatively. That's the best way of doing it. That means I can speak to you. It's like, look, here is the current amounts that we're owed each other. Let's just close the channel like adults, and we'll just send one transaction that closes the channel. I had to do one transaction to open it. So I don't know if I mentioned that. It takes one transaction to lock up the funds. Then we can send backwards and forwards 10,000 times. And then I need one transaction to close the channel. You don't have to close the channel for 6 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years. You can keep the channel open. But when you're bored, I'm going to close it. If we act like adults, and if you're online and I'm online, we can say, let's close it cooperatively. And that only takes one transaction. But if you turn your machine off, if your system is, if you run away, you're like, I don't want to play anymore, and you turn off the machine, you don't turn your Minima node back on, or you're, more likely there's some, through no fault of your own, you're not accessible. No problem. I can close the channel unilaterally, which means I don't need you. I can still close the channel. I'm going to close it cooperatively. Bing. Okay. So now it's sending a channel. It's saying, hey, just wait up. I'm closing the channel. It sends him the message, and it says, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Closing the channel now. Oh, there you go. He's got it. He's sent the message. New unspent coin. I think I can see. I've got the logs open here. Payment coin found. There it is. And so we closed the channel, and I was sent 17.99999, and he closed the channel, and he was sent 32. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a demo of, okay, these get checked every minute, and then when they found that they're closed, they get put into my old channels. Woohoo! Yeah, these are all my old channels. Oh, so sorry, this is a channel that I closed with a unilateral thing. So interestingly, if I go here, just to show you logs, not that one, this one. Sorry, there we go. So this was the one that I shut with the nice way. Co-op close requested, fine, one payout coin, fantastic. That closed from 12:39:01 to 12:39:43. Okay, fine. This channel I closed non-cooperatively, and I had to send a coin, which triggered an L2, which meant I had to post the latest update, which then meant I had to post the latest settlement. So it took 3 transactions, and it takes about half an hour. But I then got my coin, and so did they. Yeah, it's not like I only get paid. We both get paid, but I don't need to speak to you. I can always do this, and that totally works. Right, I'm going here. I'm going here. And I'm going here. Okay. So that is Omnia L2. And what's super interesting about that, though, if I can, payment is cool, obviously. And that's only peer-to-peer. So I can start a channel with you, and me and you can send money backwards and forwards. Cool, but not that useful. Yeah, I mean, it's cool and it's useful, blah, blah, blah. But what would be much cooler is if I have a channel with Neo, and Neo has a channel with Luke. Can I pay Luke? Yes, you can. Yeah. So I can pay Neo in a way that means that he only gets paid if he pays Luke, because Luke comes up with a hash of the pre-image of a time lock. And so when he gets paid, I get paid. And so you can actually make a trustless hop payment using this system. It requires a different, networking access, and I need to know the path, and I need to do all of that stuff. But the bottom line is it uses this L2 tech, but I can hop through people. That's when it becomes kind of cool. That's when I can pay, anybody on the network, sort of like Chatter, so basically anybody that sees my Chatter messages is someone that I can pay. And what I'd like to happen, which I don't know who is going to code this, but what would be nice is if every Maxima contact you had, you also have a channel. So when I open a Maxima connection to somebody, it says, hey, do you want to open a channel with them? And it's like, yeah, I'll open a channel with them. Yes, I got to lock up some funds, 100 Minima. And then everybody that's connected to everybody via other people can pay everybody that is connected. Yeah, that would be really, really cool. But that's something I look forward to somebody writing that. I look forward to somebody getting on with that. But that would be nice if on Maxima you could have a channel, and then when I send you a message, you can send it, you can forward it on. I don't know whether that would require Maxima V2 or what. But anyway, what's much cooler about that system is that payments is almost like, it's the biggest one. That's what people care about. I agree. Money is money, and paying people is obviously very, very cool. But can I do something else with it? And it's like, yes. This is what distinguishes this system, in my honest opinion, from the old Lightning Network. So the old Lightning Network, payments, fine. That's what I want to do, and it's the use case, no question. Can I write a game that runs over this? Can I run Lotto? I don't know if any of you have seen the Lotto game. It's pretty slow and but it is a trustless, peer-to-peer gambling system where you can bet with someone and neither of you can cheat. Yeah, is you flick a coin you can choose which ratio, 0.1, 0.5, whatever, and you get paid in an amount and blah, blah, blah. You can do that over this. You can do anything. You can the output, the settlement transaction, which is the one that says, okay, you make this much money and you make this much money. That can be anything. That can be any output. And it's just like, this is the last transaction in that sequence. So any application I can now write on chain, any application that I can write as a sequence of events, slow, clunky, expensive, running on layer one, fine. I can now just pick that up and say, let's run it over Omnia. And we just run it, and every transaction is just like 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. And at the end, either you agree with me that this is what's happened, and so it's like, you give me this money and you take that money, whatever the game was. It was poker, it was chess, it was whatever. Or I'm like, okay, fine. I just post the last transaction because I've got it. And that's the last transaction in the sequence, which has all the correct state variables and blah, 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 blah. And we'll just finish it on chain. Yeah, which is basically what happens when we close it unilaterally. I don't ask for your permission. I don't need you. It's like, you don't want to close it nicely? Fine. I'm just going to post the last transaction on chain, which happens to be the last transaction in the Lotto sequence. And I get paid anyway, So you may as well close it. Yeah, I honestly think it's more about them, through no fault of their own, not being able to contact you. Then you can close it unilaterally. There's no point to not closing it because you don't want to, because you want to just have a hissy fit or whatever, because I can always close it on chain. Yes, it would cost me an on-chain transaction extra. It costs me more on-chain transactions, but you can't stop the final result from coming out. And so that's pretty cool. That's really nice. The application and the 1046 version of Minima that you need to run it is in the testing channel, but we are about to post that. We're about to release that, so you're all going to have access to that. I'll probably add it as a default app, so everyone can play with it. And as always, all the code is open source, so you can see it and you can muck about with it. I just think very quickly from a dev point of view, how did I write that application? Because clearly there's a service background thing and there's a front end thing. And what I did is I wrote the whole thing in the web page first. Yeah, so I have a payout channel. So I wrote the whole thing as two web pages talking to each other. And then I just copied the mds.init and put it into service.js. And it worked. That was it. It's exactly the same. Yeah, almost no changes at all, other than how I load the JavaScript libraries. I have to say load the JavaScript. But otherwise, I've got, interesting, if you look at the code, you'll see that there's a page called playing.html. I'm just going to look at it here just to make sure. Open file. It's called Playground. I've got playground.html. And that is exactly the same code that I just copy paste, cut, put it into service.js, and it worked. And I was like, wow. So that's a good way of writing these sort of quite complicated applications. And just the only other cool thing that I did was that I'm on Linux. And so obviously I've got two versions of Minima running. And what I did is I did ln-s. I did a link. I linked a folder from one system to the other folder. And that way I can edit the files on one version of Minima, and the other version of Minima uses exactly the same, which I couldn't do on Windows. Yeah, this is what was so annoying. There's no way of, somebody can tell me, but there was no way of doing it on Windows where I'd have the same folder in different locations, so that the Minima MiniDapp system on one was using the same files as the Minima MiniDapp on the other. And that made all the difference. That means that I could edit one file and both of them updated, rather than having to actually make a MiniDapp and upload it. And I just had one system and they both used it, and that worked really well. All right. Sorry, we talked about a lot of things today. Does anybody have any questions about anything that has been said today? Nope. That's okay. Oh, Neo, you still sound like Busby, from Beatrix Potter. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Okay. I have other things. The last thing I'll tell you I mean, I don't know when I get all the time to do all of this stuff, but code is code. And I've written so I'm talking to the chip people on Monday. So we've got people who are going to try and get Minima and stuff it on a chip. Very interesting, yeah, because it's like, how is that going to work? Do you want to put the whole thing on? Is it going to need the MiniDapp system, Maxima and Minima? Should it just be Minima? Does it need the network stack? How does the fridge talk to the chip? We put it in a car. The car's got its own networking. So do I need to have that? I mean, do I get network? All of that sort of stuff. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's going to be really, really interesting. And pipelining. Yeah. So what you can do on a chip, which is really cool, is imagine if I've got a circuit board that does SHA-3. Yeah. So that does, well, not SHA-3 actually, just does a function. And obviously I can send the electricity through the circuit board and it gives me the answer. I put in 3 and it goes, and it comes out with 9 at the end of it. So it's like 1 clock cycle. So 1 clock cycle, 2 clock cycle, and every clock cycle it moves forward in the chip sequence of stuff. And what happens if I put 3 in and then 1 clock cycle and then I put 4 in and then it goes dum. So let's say it takes 10 cycles to do this function. I put the 3 in, 10 cycles later I get 9. Now I put 3 in, 1 cycle, then I put 4 in. 1 cycle, then I put 5 in. Now I've got 3 cycles running at the same time. The 3 pops out after 10 cycles and I get 9. But then 1 cycle later, I get the answer to 4, which is 12. And then 1 cycle later, I get the answer to 5, which is 15. And so you can pipeline stuff. Yeah, imagine solving KISS-VM script contracts. And basically it means, yes, the first one takes as long to go through, but the second one pops out immediately. I can run multiple functions through this hardware at the same time. Yeah. So I've been looking at so it's looking like, I don't know, 500, if you can get 500 to 1,000 times just using FPGA, and FPGA is like 1,000 times slower than using an actual hardware chip, but we're going to be using FPGAs and we're going to try and get Java. And, I don't know whether we're going to convert bytecode into C assembly or whether we're going to actually try to get a JVM running or whether we're going to get some I don't know, I don't know how we're going to do this. But if you do it right, what's like amazing about this is that if you could get Minima to run on a chip, firstly, energy efficiency. Yeah, we're talking almost, 1,000 times less battery usage. Fantastic. And even better, 1,000 times more hash rate. Yeah. And what I really, really like about this is that the Minima security is done by you. Yeah. If there's 20,000, 30,000 of us on the network, 50,000, whatever it is, on the network, then we're all hashing on our phones. Phones are terrible at hashing. But now imagine you upgrade the phone so they all have SHA-3 chips. Like obviously it can have, obviously it'll have SHA-3 as some hardware function. So that'll be like 10,000 times faster than using the software version that I currently use. That suddenly means that we increase the security of the network by 10,000 times for the same amount of power, the same amount of energy. Yeah. So it's like, wow. So it's almost like if we can upgrade the users rather than having to have big miners that are getting upgraded so they do more hashing and more hash rate, if each of you had the chip that did it on the phone or on the device or whatever, on the fridges, then our network hash rate could be serious, like Bitcoin serious, like no unassailable serious, like serious amounts of power serious. So that's quite interesting. So I am talking to them, and what I've done is, you may or may not know this, but Minima has Minima and it has Maxima and it has the MiniDapp system, and I've squashed it all into one. Yeah, we've got the big mega mono repo that is Minima, which is Minima, Maxima, and the MiniDapp system. There is a reason for that. Originally, we had Minima and I had a separate application that was Maxima, and then we had a separate application that was the MiniDapp system. The coders, they didn't, and we had to launch, and it was like, we better get doing this. So I suddenly went, right, I'll do it. We'd given these out to other people to write, and it didn't come. They didn't give us the code, and so then I just wrote it. And there is huge advantages to having a single dev. Yeah, Satoshi knew this. I know this. Yeah, I can do anything. I can push to master. Yeah, I can push to. I don't, but I could. And I can change stuff, and I can do. But there's also really bad things to this. I can push to master. I can change anything I want. Blah, 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 blah. But there is a speed to development that you just don't get when you're in a team. There is an element of, the vision can flow. I don't need to ask anyone for anything anyway. So anyway, when I had to write the MiniDapp system in Maxima, I think I knocked it out in like a month. Yeah, but it was all part of the same repo because I couldn't be bothered to be git pulling and pushing to different repos. It's like, and so everything's in one big repo. And let me tell you, the MiniDapp system is bigger than the rest of Minima. Yeah, there's more code in just the MiniDapp system than I've got for the rest of Minima. And so I've done a version of Minima called Pure Minima because that's the version I want to put. I don't want to put the MiniDapp system on a chip. I don't even want to put Maxima on a chip. I only want consensus critical on the chip. And this may be the spur I need to write Maxima V2. So I've got a pure version of Minima now, and it's been so long. It's like, oh my darling, there you are. And it's such a small amount of code. There's only like, I don't know, 40 classes or something. I'm like, what? Is that all there is? And it just runs clean. And I'm going to stuff that into an APK. We're going to have different implementations. Woo. Yeah, we're going to have the main Minima Global, Minima MiniDapp Maxima system, which is beautiful. Yeah, and that's the one we use. But now I'm going to have pure Minima, just Minima, no Maxima, no MiniDapps, running as an APK. Better RPC system. Yeah, a better way of accessing the RPC. And then you're going to be able to write proper, pure Android applications that access Minima over RPC. Because there's no point giving you the MiniDapp system with files and SQL and all that stuff when an Android APK gives you that. If I write an Android applications, I get file access, I get, lovely SQL, I get all of that stuff. What I want is RPC to Minima commands. And so that's what I've been working on. And that's so nice. It's so nice to see just bare, stripped down, functional Minima. And I've got a version of that. It's actually, I've pushed it already. It's called Pure Minima. It's on Dev Pure Minima. And I'm working on that. And I can also upgrade the libraries in there, which I can't really do on Minima because the H2 database is not backwards compatible. And it's like, whereas in the new version, you're going to get the latest version of H2, which is much faster, which means all those errors you're getting sometimes, when you get the non-transient exception stuff, that's because the H2 database we're using is 2.12 or something, which is like 5-6 years old. And now I'm going to use the 2.3212 version, which is like 3 months old and blah, 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 blah. So that's really nice. Dev Pure Minima, which is just Minima without anything else involved. And also, current Minima, 60 megabytes. Pure Minima, and 5 megabytes. 5 megabytes. And it's only fine. It's actually 1 megabyte without the libs. So it's basically the H2 database and the Bouncy Castle cryptographic libraries that add the 4 megabytes. I'm really thinking of extracting those functions because I'm like, 4 megabytes for a SHA-3 Winternet signature scheme. I'm like, what? The H2 database, that's different. Yeah, SQL database, I didn't realize it was going to take 3. I don't know. But anyway, this might matter. So I'm trying to squeeze it down. But 1 megabyte for just Minima sans libs. But as a Minima all jar, the one that does everything, it's like 4.9 megabytes rather than 60 megabytes. It's like, okay. Whew. Right. So I think we've covered a lot today. Sorry, as always, I've just been ranting at you. I hope some of it made sense. Just trying to download some of my thoughts so that you can know what's going on. Neo, are you here with us yet, or are you not here? That's fine. Don't worry, I can do this. So, unless anybody has anything that they would like to ask, wait a second. Sorry, I've just noticed there's 27 bits here. A bit late to call. Can time? No one's actually got any. Normally, Neo's the one that asks me the questions that get asked, since I can't rant and read at the same time. But yeah, I think we'll call that a wrap then. As always, I've enjoyed immensely speaking to you. I hope some of it made sense, and I look forward to seeing you in the dev chat. You might like this actually. So we're working on an AI bot that is going to reply like me in the dev chat, because I know that a lot of you ask me questions. Go, Spartacus, how do you do this? So we're trying to get an LLM that will reply like me, which I think would be really useful. Yeah, because that would be something that hopefully people would use. So let's see how that goes. It's our sort of AI dev bot thing, which DM, yeah. No, Will, where's Will? No, Will's not here. So he's sort of started all this AI stuff, but we're sort of getting there. I'm still LLMs, but some of it is all right. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I think we'll call it quits there. As always, the pleasure has been mine. I will see you around.